you know, whether and how you set up your folders, one thing I would certainly make sure you're doing is using the Spotlight search often. How many of you actually would say you have used the Spotlight search? Yeah, or maybe before today, never, right? Spotlight search is terrific because for that reason, because for the fact that actually right now I have no idea what I put in productivity. I told you I wasn't kidding, that what's actually in there. But I know that if I wanted to pull up Puppet Pals really quickly, to me the best way to do it is rather than even folders, basically taking your iPad, sliding down with one finger, and just typing in Puppet Pals. And typing in the first few letters and going directly to it. To me that just is the best one. The thing I would add to that, which is why I want you to be a little bit careful about Spotlight search, is the following. When you slide down, okay, and when you slide down and you go ahead and type in something, by default, so I'm actually looking for P, right, the word P for Puppet Pals. It's going to find whatever you type in every single place in your iPad unless you're careful. So by typing in a certain letter or a certain word, that might search your photos, it might search your mail, it might search your calendar events, it might search your contacts, it might search your music. And when you're here in front of the class, you never necessarily know what shows up sometimes and you want to be careful. And maybe it's not a problem, you know, the fact that if you were to type in ROL, the Rolling Stones music album shows up, maybe that's not a big deal, but just be careful. Or maybe a certain email pops up that you don't necessarily want the student showing to. So here's my suggestion for fixing that. If you go to your settings, and again, just make sure you often work with your settings. And within your settings itself, you want to go to, someone help me out of it. Spotlight search. Where do you see that? Spotlight search. Perfect. So we want to go to Spotlight search. So we go to settings, we go to general, we go to Spotlight search. And you're going to see by default that there's about 10 or 15 things that are automatically showing up in the Spotlight search. So maybe I decide I don't want my mail to show up when I do a Spotlight search. Maybe I don't want my notes to show up in a Spotlight search because I'm searching for a particular name and all of a sudden that shows up as a note that I wrote about a student, and I don't want that showing up in front of the class. Maybe I don't want videos or events or reminders or contacts, or maybe you want to get rid of everything and just use the Spotlight search for applications. Also a very good strategy. So I would just say, okay, we know the Spotlight search is great, just make sure you're ready for it and make sure that you know what you're searching for and then actually utilize it because it's a really neat tool. But thank you very much. Okay, my opinion only, completely my opinion only, and you can disagree with me, your school might have a different philosophy as you start to think more and more about iPads. My philosophy is I would never put a passcode on my iPad, and I would instruct my students to never put passcodes on their iPads. Here's my rationale for it. Number one, passcodes, and by the way, to create a passcode, we're going to settings, we're going to where it should say even passcode. Alright, and now I'm going to go turn passcode on. So I'm going to set one. So I'm just doing 1, 2, 3, 4. You all can see it. Okay, here's why I would never do a passcode. Because if you are a teacher who uses his or her iPad in front of the class all the time, and now you have air server on your projected, and now I turn on my device, and all of a sudden it says, okay, enter your passcode. Someone go ahead and tell me what my passcode is. Ready? Don't look. Okay, so it kind of defeats the purpose from that standpoint. So when you're working with the students, there's no point in the passcode. I'll give you one more side from the student perspective, and I actually heard this from a teacher, which is similar to the one I'm also going to talk about in a second as well. The teacher was using it for Latin class. She was using her book, and what happened was, as most classes are with iPads or anything, there were times when they were using the book on the iPad. And then, iPad turns off after 1 minute or 2 minutes of not being used. Okay, so now it turns to this. And then the students, now she wants to go back to the book, so she has to turn the iPad back on. They have to go like this. Now they have to enter in their passcode and hope that they're still on the right page in the book. And, she said it wasn't a big deal, but that 10 or 15 seconds, which might be multiplied by the number of students you have, just took it that much longer to do something as simple as flipping a book page to the page you want. And so for her, it was just that 15 seconds of distraction made it hard for her to manage the class. And if we're thinking about class management with being a good iPad user, and that should be factored into it. So I would always instruct students to not use passcodes, especially there are ones, by the way, who will have passcodes of 35 word letters. I have no idea how they do it, but they actually do it. Yeah.
And isn't it also true that if you enter the wrong one too many times, you lock down that iPad, and kids know that, and they purposely do it to
Correct.
each other.
It's the dog ate my homework.
And then they can't get in.
Absolutely. And also, I'll say that, and also add to the other one, some of you I've seen have the little Bluetooth keyboard that you connect to, and we've had this a lot at our school, where a student will come in and say exactly what you just said, that the iPad doesn't work,